Good evening, everyone. You know, in Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19, there's an account of Jesus traveling on his way to Jerusalem. And as they were going along, he entered into a village. And there were 10 men, the scripture says, who were leprous, or they had leprosy. It was a type of skin disease, and some forms of that leprosy could be very contagious. So they had to stay away from people. And so these 10 men who had leprosy, they called out to Jesus when they saw him approaching, because they had heard of his healing power. And they cried out and they said, "Jesus, have mercy on us." Well, Jesus heard them, and they were still off in the distance, but Jesus just shouted out to them and said, "Go, show yourself to the priest." And the men, when they heard Jesus say that, knew that Jesus was basically granting their healing, because according to the scriptures in Leviticus chapter 13, which is the Old Testament law, which they followed and went by, the priests were the one who would examine a person who had leprosy to see whether they were healed or not. It was the priest who, when a person would first have a skin outbreak of some kind, they would have to go and show themselves to the priest, be examined, and then the priest would determine whether it was indeed leprosy or just some kind of a minor skin condition. So when these 10 lepers heard Jesus say, "Go and show yourself to the priest," they were really excited, because they were like, Jesus is healing us. This is why he wants us to go. So they all turned and they began on their way to head to where the nearest priests were. But as they were going along, one of the 10 looked down and realized that already his skin was clearing, and he was being healed. He was being cleansed. And he was so overjoyed, he couldn't even wait to get to the priest to get that declaration. He just ran back to Jesus. Because, in fact, I think he knew that Jesus really was the high priest, the true priest, who had given him the healing. And the scripture says that he fell down at Jesus' feet and just bowed his head, and he gave thanks and praise to Jesus, thanking him for healing him. And when Jesus saw this act of extreme gratitude, Jesus said, "Well, weren't there 10 that were cleansed? And yet here's only one who has come back to give me thanks. And he's a Samaritan." Now, the significance of that is that the Jewish people looked at the Samaritans as being people who didn't really follow God's laws, and they would be considered, in a lot of ways, social outcasts. The Jewish people who claimed to follow God didn't have a lot of use for the Samaritans. And yet here was this Samaritan who was rejected by those who thought they were religious and following God, showing that he really recognized who God was. So Jesus made a point of saying, "Hey, look, this guy that's come back is a Samaritan." And then Jesus said to the man who had fallen down and given thanks, the leper, he said, "Stand up and go. Your faith has made you well." That's amazing, because it doesn't mean that the other 9 didn't receive their physical healing. I believe they still did as well. But the difference was this one man who had the gratitude in his heart to give thanks to Jesus and took the time to do it was made well in his soul. He was totally healed physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because he came to understand that Jesus is Messiah. And he had that gratitude and gave him thanks. And so Jesus was acknowledging, your faith has not only made you physically healed, but you have been made well because you understand who I am. So I hope that this Thanksgiving, even with all the troubles that we're going through, you'll take the time to not just be thankful in general for thanks' sake in general, but you will give thanks to Jesus, even in the midst of these difficulties. Acknowledge that he is our Messiah, he's our hope, our only hope. Give him thanks and gratitude and glory, and you will be made well in your soul. God bless you, and I hope that you have a blessed and protected week, and a week in which you can be thankful for things, even in the midst of all the difficulty we're going through. God bless you.